Oh, nice.
Munson and the Geeza. Munson and the Geeza. Reporting from the scene. Munson and the Geeza. News in every ride.
Munson and the Geeza on a Monday evening, 7 o'clock here in Portugal. Oh, look at you! You've been on Jim or Fix It,
huh?
You've been on
what?
Have you been on Jim or Fix It?
Jim will fix it. What are you talking about?
Your badge there. That's lovely.
Oh, you're talking about my medal.
Your medal, sorry, not badge. How rude of me. How are you? And congratulations, Tony.
Oh, I'm glad you noticed it. I just happened to be. Yeah, I just happen to be.
And now the funny thing is, with the pair of us, I feel like I've run a marathon or a 10K. You actually have. How are you feeling? What's it like?
Still buzzing. To be honest, yeah, it was a really awesome experience. I don't know. I've obviously never done anything like that before. I should look at the microphone, shouldn't I? Well, talk to the microphone.
Well, we do lose you a little bit.
Yeah.
I can hear your ring a little bit too, which is quite the.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I do think it's a problem with StreamYard because I use this microphone on other platforms like Zoom, and I haven't noticed it, but I noticed the ring myself on a recording I did on StreamYard last week. So.
Okay, well, it's good enough. It's good enough, and we're into our. Picking up on the theme, we're asking if life is a race. Is it a marathon? Is it a sprint? Is it a 10K indeed? But the first 30 minutes of our calls is usually catching up. And a week it's been, it looks to me like the Ukraine flag has replaced the I've got my jab badge, doesn't it, on social media? Your face, honestly, and anti-vaxxer has been replaced by Putin apologist, hasn't it, in the great sort of narratives of our time. Anyway, before we get into that, probably second half hour, how was the 10K? Tell us more about it. I'm surprised to hear you've never done anything like that before.
Well, it's not like that. I've never done any competitive sport before, but certainly not anything on that scale.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, I raced BMX a little bit and played rugby a little bit, but never anything, not like on that scale, not that. So, I mean, the scale of the thing was one thing. I think in my race, so my understanding was that yesterday there was a 6K run, a 10K run, a half marathon and a full marathon. And in the 10K run, there was 12,000 people.
Right. Okay. And
so that will tell you the scale. And
the pictures are incredible. Really, really incredible.
I mean, really an amazing volume of people. And obviously the logistics are very interesting because I was at first they said, oh, you have to come to Lisbon to get your, exactly. And you have to come to Lisbon to get your gear. So you get your bib and there's kind of a kit. So the thing, I can't remember the exact price. It was like 30 euros or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a t-shirt, you get your bib, you get the medal, obviously, and if I think you paid €3 more, you got it you could have it engraved, and a magazine and a hat or something. So of course it's all done. So I paid for that, and then what it is yesterday was the 9th, and you had to go get to Lisbon to the Mayo Arena to pick up your gear on the 7th, the 6th, the 7th, or the 8th. And I had teed up with someone to get it for me. That fell through, so I had to drive down on Saturday, pick up my gear, drive back. It's a 3-hour drive each way from my house.
Right.
Yeah. So I had to drive down, pick up my gear, drive home, and then I got up because obviously you can see the start is on the wrong side of the bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what
I mean?
You
were parked on the Almada side.
Well, so to get to the other side, because the bridge was closed, I would have had to add about half an hour to a 3-hour journey. So I looked online and people suggested, no, go to this Belém Pasta Donata cafe.
Yeah.
And there'll be shuttle buses, right? So what I did is I set off from my house I got up at 3, had a cup of tea, set off at 3:30, in the morning.
God, right, a marathon effort.
So I got there. Well done. Got there at 6:30. Found somewhere to park. Believe it or not, about a 10-minute walk from that cafe. Went to the cafe. Sure enough, there was just shuttle buses just queued up.
So they chose to shuttle people from a little street cafe. 12.
Well, there were other ways. If you lived in Lisbon, you would have just caught the train, right?
Okay.
Because the shuttle bus took us to the train station, and there'll be a video out tomorrow. And I'm not just saying this. I actually didn't.
Of course, there'll be a video out tomorrow.
A little bit of the video was obviously devoted to the race, but I did a lot showing the madness of getting to it, which it was for me. It was really interesting because there was just the volume of people. Like when we got to in particular, when we got to the train station, it was just an ocean of people. You know.
Well, how do you get 12,000 people onto a starting line?
They do. Well, actually, it's funny. You'll see the start because they do this big countdown. They go like, he goes 30 seconds, 20 seconds. He goes, right. You know, and the guy was really good, like the MC, because we're all standing at the front of the bridge, right? So just go backwards. The whole reason we had to be from that cafe and catch the train, because there's no way to get over the bridge.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
So obviously, you start over there, then you cross the bridge. So in the end, obviously, when we ended, I was back near my car. So the whole thing would have been ridiculous if I'd have gone around. You know what I mean? So there was method in their madness, right?
Well, I think you need a like a Mensa prize as well as a medal for figuring it all out, the logistics.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, Carl. I think most people would have just read the instructions about 6 months ago.
Oh,
not like the evening before.
And they might have gone and made a long weekend of it. Got their
kids. Well, yeah. I learned my lesson. Obviously, just in the price of diesel. To be honest, I probably could have just stayed in an Airbnb or something.
Yeah.
So I think next year I will go down, get my kit, stay in an Airbnb, and obviously be more chilled about, because they in the Mayo Arena they had like a big event. They had like lots of different things, like you could go get your heart rate tested, and
pretty wise.
It was a big event. Yeah, you know what I mean. They had all sorts of booths where you could buy quite heavily discounted running gear. You know, lots of different things for run. And again, for me, this is a whole new
world.
You know, we've spoken about this before. Whenever because I've kind of been just running by myself for the last 6 months, and I haven't been aware that there's a whole
a consumer aspect to it.
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was interesting. Yeah. So we got on the train. We only had to go to the one station over the bridge, and then everybody piles off, and then it was just amazing. There were just so many people, and everyone's just weeing everywhere, and
really,
because not enough
in the Paula Radcliffe style.
Yeah. At the beginning there weren't so many women, but by the time we got to the bridge, everyone was just letting it go. Because one thing, if you're not a runner, or if you don't run, or even for that matter walk long distance, I've said to people, when it comes to even my long walking, you learn pretty quickly that for some reason when you walk or run a long distance, it increases. Two things happen. Obviously, it increases the odds of that being one of the times of the day when you kind of want to go for a number one or a number two, right? It just obviously, because it's a length of time.
Yeah.
And also, what I've noticed, and anyone else in the comments, please forgive me for talking about this. But anyone else in the comments who's done a lot of walking, like vigorous walking or running, you don't get a lot of time. When you want to go, you feel like you have to go.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
The urge is quite sudden.
Yeah, and I witnessed 2 people during the race crap themselves. Yeah,
and it's just part of what happens.
Yeah. People just stop. Yeah. Well, I mean, you were talking about Paula Radcliffe, but I mean, if you're doing that race, you see lots of people just stop and go.
Really?
You know, usually it's a number one.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I didn't sort of
analyze it too much, right?
Analyze it, but it's you see a lot of people, and I saw at least 2 people.
It's not funny, Bertie. It is not funny, Bertie. It's just nature.
I saw at least 2 people just crap themselves, just blatantly.
Really?
Yeah.
And that wasn't because they saw you. It was just like nature. doing it.
Yeah, well, I get. I mean, I didn't. You know, you don't stop and ask either, do you? But I said a lot. I've said a long time ago when people ask me what kit I take with me when I go out walking or running. One of the things I have in my bag is a toilet roll.
Or a Telemann. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have your good.
Because I suppose running in
moments.
a pad is not a very comfortable thing to do. I suppose either, is it? Although they must exist.
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if some people do it, especially in the marathon.
Yeah.
You know, or even the half marathon. The half marathon is 21.5 kilometers or something like that.
Yeah.
So I imagine it becomes even more, you know,
Prescient.
It's just again for I guess people who do these kind of things all the time will know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's just quite amazing when you're all getting ready to, and there's a kind of real nervous energy, you know, because like you're all there about an hour before the start time and everyone's warming up, and it was cold as well. That was the other thing. It was really cold. So people are warming up and I'm thinking, wow,
Yes.
I felt it. I felt like, wow, I really want to run. But the funny thing is the longest I've ever run is 10 kilometers.
Right. Okay. So
do you know what I mean?
You're at your capacity.
Yeah. So I was scared. I'm thinking, I've got all this nervous energy and I want to run and warm up. But I know that 10K, well, I've never tested, can I do 11 or 12?
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is, I did my personal best.
How long did it take you?
It took me 1 hour 34.
Good God! So you're running for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And what sort of pace? Were you jogging or running or what?
Slow. Jogging.
Yeah.
Most of the time jogging. And what really sort of annoyed me about when I got to the end, because when you get to the end, you don't have, for me anyway, I didn't have a lot left, if that makes sense. So
energy. Well, how do you feel now? Well, how do you feel now?
Oh, I feel great. Fantastic. Just really buzzing. But when you get to the end, there's kind of an archway. Everyone's seen it, and there's your time. So I could see it was 1 hour 34, and I was like, oh my God, how much did it slow me down? Getting my phone out, putting it on the gimbal. And I thought, I could have cracked the 130 because how they get you through it is really amazing. They have people obviously cheering you on and trying to push you, but also they have things like kilometer markers.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, right? You can tell I'm really excited about this. Sorry, I'm going to probably monopolize the conversation.
No, I'm really enjoying hearing about it.
It's so for example, another lesson I learned yesterday is spend more on trainers. I don't know why I did it, because I bought some of all the trainers I've bought so far, because I think I've mentioned before I'm going for a pair of trainers like every 6 weeks now. And this is by far the cheapest trainers I bought. And when I bought them, the guy in the shop said, "Oh, they're not good for a 10K, mate." And I thought, yeah, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah, you're just trying to upsell me.
And I hadn't really had a problem with them, but yesterday, because I was kind of more running, trying to get a bit of time under my belt, by the 2K mark, my feet were numb. They were numb. Yeah,
2K?
yeah.
And
then I had and also I have, this is something that always happens to me, is my calves really, really burn.
Mm-hmm.
And but what was good about those kilometer markers was I was able to think, right, I'm at 2K, so I'm only a fifth of the way. Let's go to 3, and if at 3 they're still burning, I'll allow myself to walk for 500 meters. And so, but by the time I got to 3, the burn, I'd gone, you know what I mean? I'd got
through the burn.
So that was awesome. And then I didn't really feel like I need to walk at all till about kilometer 7, I think. And then I walked.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Got on with it, but it was awesome. But the other thing I want to say to people, if anyone's ever thinking about doing it, first of all, there are some people who walk the whole way. Yeah, some people just walk it.
No shame in that.
And the other thing I saw that was quite odd, and anyone who's ever done an event like this can tell me, was this just a Portugal thing? But because I when I parked the car, I could, because obviously I didn't want to carry anything, so I just went shorts, just what I was going to run in, and it was really cold. And when I got to the place, a lot of people still had jackets on and everything like that. And what I realized, there was a service where you could put your stuff on there like a lorry, and they would pick. But a lot of people did the first, say, kilometer with their jackets on, then they just take their jackets off and chuck them.
Seriously, disposable stuff.
There was a cohort. Well, some of it. These are obviously people who just do it a lot, Carla. So there were these group of women who were walking, and they had numbers on, so they'd obviously paid to be in it. But all they were doing was picking up clothes and stuff in a
No
little bag.
way. No
Yeah.
way.
Openly, you know.
Ecosystem.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
incredible.
it was amazing. So they were just like that was their whole shtick. They paid 30 euros to go into the race just so
And
they could
collected all the
pick up
jackets.
discarded
And 1,000
jackets and
euros
things.
worth of jackets.
Yeah, probably.
And
So
soiled running shorts. But, okay,
you can see every now and again one of them would pick up a jacket. It'd be like a Nike jacket or something. They go, "Wow, look, wow, yeah, yeah, yeah." And I
wow.
was like, wow,
And
this
they
is
were running
mad.
past people though, doing that, presumably. They're
Well,
running
no,
past the crowd.
they were walking. They were walking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they would still have to go past the public doing this.
Oh,
wouldn't they?
yeah, yeah. It was open. I mean, they were walking past the police doing it, and they were walking past the
Well,
workers. I mean,
that's probably better, isn't it? If they do a judgment call.
you're never by yourself, Carl. You're never by yourself. There's
But
always
isn't it
people.
better that that's cleared up by somebody in a way than it is just left on the street?
Oh, I mean, I guess so. Whatever. It was just a thing I saw that was unexpected and unusual.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And
What else is part of this ecosystem then in this culture?
Right. The other thing I found really interesting was there's all shapes and sizes and ages. If anything, I was kind of in the middle, I suppose. Like I have to say, even in spite of there being some obviously extremely fit people, I didn't feel uncomfortable. I mean, I don't feel sort of uncomfortable. I'm trying to say this without sounding insulting to other people, right?
You weren't the chunkiest specimen.
I wasn't the chunkiest guy, you know what I mean? But and by far I wasn't the oldest. There were people who were a lot older. There were some elderly people, but one thing that I saw that was quite interesting was I saw some kind of slim people who looked very athletic kind of fade pretty quickly, but that might be just they're not used to it, maybe, or didn't do enough training.
People were bowing out as well. That was happening.
I didn't actually see anyone bow out, but I saw people obviously stop trying to make any effort to go quick, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they stop and they just walk. But then it's hard to know because again, I was kind of somewhere
10K.
Well, this is the
Are they still there?
This is the next thing, Carl. What you're going to understand is when I was jogging, and you'll even see it if you watch my video, there's some people walking who walk as fast as you jog. And there are some people who walk faster. So you know, yeah, there are some people who walk fast. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
They walk
speed walkers.
They walk properly. That weird kind of, you know, you see them with their hips wiggling.
But they're either at salsa in the evenings or tango, and then running.
Yeah. And then also, you might know there's like for example, the guy who kind of mentored me, I spoke to him about it. The funniest thing was I remember the first time I ran 10K was I found on my maps it was from my house to a cafe in Oliveira Hospital called Cafe Jardin, exactly 5K. So I ran there and ran back without stopping, and that was the first time I ran 10K. And I checked my time, and I was like, "This is ridiculous. It took me longer than it does to do like a mix of walking and running." And he said to me, a lot of people actually do their race like that, and there's a name for it. It's actually called jeffing. So some people, and I was trying to. It's hard to watch people because obviously the pack you're in,
what is jeffing? Then a mixture of walking and running.
Yeah, a mixture of walking and running. So obviously the pack you're in is quite dynamic. So sometimes you're running with one person for like 10 minutes, and then they'll either push away from you or they'll slow down, but you'll keep running, or vice versa. So
yeah.
But I did see people who appeared to be doing this, which is there's all sorts of ways of mixing it, but it could be for example, you run for 3 minutes, walk for 30 seconds, run for 3 minutes, walk for 30 seconds. Yeah.
That's like intermittent training, isn't it?
Yeah, and I could say that for me, I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to run as much as I could. That was sort of my personal challenge, to just run it or jog it. Let's say jog. But I'm faster. I go faster if I use that method. Bit of walking, bit of running, bit of walking, bit of running. Yeah, because
keeps the pace up, I suppose, doesn't it?
30 seconds of walking can give you a lot of energy back, you know?
Yes, yeah.
So there's lots of people doing that. Yeah. Lots of people.
Congratulations. Well done. I think it's amazing that you did that. And you're talking as if you're going to do it again next year.
Not only will I do it again, I think I might even increase my goal to try and do the half marathon. But
Right.
we'll see.
How
A
many?
year's a long time, and I'm really looking forward to
21
the summer.
kilometers. You're
Yeah.
doubling to a half. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm really looking forward to the summer so I could train a bit more.
You're looking longingly for. I mean, we do need some decent weather, don't we, Tony?
Yeah, what is going on? 2 weeks of rain forecast.
It's really soul destroying, isn't it? I know we sound really spoiled, don't we?
The only problem I've got is I have to admit, you know, most of us, I gather, have got Facebook, and I keep seeing my Facebook memories pop up every day, and it's me last year going, "Oh my God, it's raining again."
Yeah.
So, you know, and I do remember last year, the government had to increase the time limit for clearing our land by a month because of the rain.
Oh, okay, right.
So I'd kind of forgotten about that until recently, yeah. But I remember last year, a lot of us cleared our land, and then it rained and rained and rained. And within a month, all the weeds had all come back. So the government had to increase the land. Probably not something that you know about, but in the countryside, we have to clear our land.
Yeah, no, I'm
Do
familiar.
you know what I mean? It's a
have
legal requirement.
Yeah, you know, I've made public service announcements along those lines, and yeah, it's definitely a thing, isn't it? But yeah, I have this ongoing question mark about it, and people telling me it's normal. I don't think so. It might be normalized, but I don't remember such prolonged rain.
It's like the picture. It's like the picture behind me, Carl. People accept it,
Yeah,
even though the evidence is clear, or the opposite of clear.
you've got actually special effects. You've got the striped sky, and you've got extra frazzling going on the screen, which is quite a nice effect.
Yeah.
We should say hello because we've got the wonderful Donna Gainesville Gator.
She's in the house. She's not just in the house. She's in
Porto.
Porto.
Finally here in Portugal. Well done. Welcome.
With her pet crocodile. How was it? Or pet gator, I should say. Alligator.
Yes.
What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
Is it a bit early for that sort of thing, isn't it? But go on.
One will see you in a while, and one will see you later.
Oh dear. Buckets of rain here in Porto, better than snow, although we don't get much snow in Florida. I'm keeping up with the gator emojis, G's there. Crypto strategist, he's long gone. Wishing you a good evening. On my way out to Bridge. He's quite the gentleman, isn't he? He's a crypto investor, goes out to play bridge, and it sounds like he's congratulating you on. Is that the new dog I saw in your video? Is that dog called Lucas? Because
yeah. This was my God. What a! I mean, you know, everybody.
How many dogs?
Everybody. Well, I got 3.
Okay.
Like who are permanent, sort of.
Yeah. Okay.
Who've got their D7s at my house. But
are they going to be going for citizenship or not?
I think everyone who knows me must have been I told you, didn't I?
Yeah.
I had this idea.
Just have it for a week. I'll just have it for a week.
I'll have an old dog from there for a week, then I'll go swap it for another one, and then
nobody wants
the swap. It comes the day of the swap, and you're like, don't be stupid.
And they're looking up at you, aren't they? Tony, don't send me back there, mate. I love being here with you. Don't send me back.
Yeah.
Tony, come on, man.
In English, perfect English.
Yeah.
Tell her what you call it.
Telepathically.
Call it?
Yeah.
Telepathically,
Yeah, incredible. And he's concerned about your asbestos roof. I thought that when I saw your roofing solution. I did think that you might have some.
It is sealed. There is it is going to come
Leave
off.
it well alone.
There is just this part on the annex, but they are sealed. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
There's
no flakes falling down as we speak.
No.
Good,
but
okay.
obviously, this is on the plan to come off. Yeah. It's just,
we had a prolonged summer as well. Yes, we're meant to have a prolonged summer. That is the whole point of being in Portugal, isn't it? It starts in about now and it goes on till November.
Yeah, well, to me, a good summer starts on January the 1st and ends on December 31st.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I live in Portugal. Manon, a good evening to you. 14 years, and remember 10 years ago, same flooding, but not weeks and weeks. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Why is Tony looking to the sky? He's seeking inspiration.
I definitely I've said to people, I didn't really I didn't really look at it. Funnily enough, I didn't really pay attention to it that much until I started doing the 20,000 steps,
Right.
because I do it early in the morning. So this is what I try to explain to people. I literally watch what happens. I literally watch it. I start the day, and as the sun comes up, the sky is perfectly blue.
Yeah.
Perfectly blue, just like we used to have. And I don't care what anyone says. I remember when I was a kid, we had blue skies in the summer that stayed blue.
And
You
curly
know,
willies were bigger.
and we also had airplanes then. But I watch them. They go criss, 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 because I'm out there walking for 2 hours at the time when they do it.
Yeah.
And then by the time I finish, and I've made videos about it, and people still don't believe it. I've gone, look, here's a blue
Believe
sky.
what though? What are you saying?
I believe that I'm not talking about. A lot of people come at me with this thing about chem. I don't like to say the word, you know, the chem.
Should we call it? What do we call it? Crepe or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
and you know
yeah.
When we get to these moments when you can't, when grown-ups can't say like words on a, you know, I'm like, say it and be damned, basically.
I'm not saying it's that, but what I am saying is that it takes them about 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
And the whole sky. Carlos watches the sky. He'll know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's just simply no question. There's a blue sky. The planes go crisscross, 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 and crosshatch the whole sky, whether it be chem or con or whatever.
It doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter. It's some kind of white thing that's coming from the plane.
And
then over the next piece of time, they just get wider and wider and wider. And then by 11 o'clock in the morning, the whole sky is completely white.
And also,
you know what I mean?
we've had heavy and persistent rain in the last few weeks.
And my argument is that obviously must. I'm not even saying it's deliberate. It doesn't. It's not
exactly.
The point.
Yeah,
it's not the point I'm making. How is it acceptable that we can't have a blue sky? How is that acceptable?
Or even
to
talk
everyone?
about it. It's interesting.
You know what I mean? Whether
it's
it's just a completely natural thing that happens from planes, right?
Yeah,
And just happens because there's so many planes now. Why I want to be allowed to have a solid blue sky on a sunny day.
I would like to be able to talk about it without this. I will call it, for the purposes of this conversation, the slip road. And it happens with Ukraine and Russia and Trump. Let's say all of the words. It happens with pretty much everything, that a conversation seems to be filtered very quickly, doesn't it, into a judgment or a put down of some kind. It's like a gauntlet. Let's call it a gauntlet. So the idea, you know, we're talking about the skies and what's happening with the weather, and you run the gauntlet, and then these fists are coming out like, take that, you conspiracy theorist, or it can't be like that, or it's definitely like this, and you can't get to the end of where you're running to, can you?
You can't, because you have to keep. It's like when you're trying to have a conversation about Trump, and you're going like, just to say up front, I'm not a Trump lover. I'm not.
You've got to say that before, as you're lacing up your boots to run the gauntlet.
But don't you think this thing Trump did is correct? Oh, he's a Nazi. How can you like what's that got to do with what?
Yes.
Listen, focus on the point. You can't have it, you know.
Innocent questions like, is it possible that this might be causing that? And that for that to land and be considered is a very rare thing, it would appear.
Yeah. When it comes to the cloud things, I mean, I haven't doctored any of the videos that I've made on it. They're genuinely, I've been out walking and I show you. Yeah, I mean, Carlos knows what I'm talking about. Sorry, seeding. Like it's very peculiar how it's a kind of a crosshatch, and
it's a weird flight path, isn't it?
So what I mean is I've filmed it and I've shown people, and people still say you're a conspiracy theories, and they'll always say, oh, that's just which one's the best? Oh, that's just contrails. And I'm like, I've never said what kind of trail I think it is. Yeah. All I'm saying is there are trails, and
they appear to have an effect.
And they might just be exhaust or whatever. I don't know. Yes. But there are white things coming out of the back of the planes.
Yeah.
After some time in the sky, they do get wider and eventually all join together, and the whole blue sky, sometimes 100% of the sky is now white.
Yes.
And my question is, surely that has some impact on the weather.
Yeah, that's a reasonable question.
know.
Isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
So that's it. And
Yeah.
and apart from that, even if it's all very innocent, doesn't have any effect on the weather.
Yes.
When did it become acceptable for planes to deny our right to have a blue sky?
Because people need to go on cheap flights to faraway places.
What cheap
Possibly.
flights? That's finished, mate.
What cheap-
Yeah, that's the other thing. Do you remember? I've looked a few times online. I thought, oh, I'll tell you what, a long weekend. Why don't I grab the boys and we just go to Barcelona or something? And I'll look online. The cheapest flights like 150 quid or something. Or you can find them. What they do now, you can find like that 40 quid flight, but the return will be 120 times 3, and it's just like, oh, forget it.
Yeah.
So
better off driving.
Well, Carlos, I'll tell you a funny thing. My son is mad about planes. He especially military planes. He's very, very interested. And seriously, he could tell you everything about them, the year they were built, how much they cost, what kind of everything. And he can actually. I've seen him. He's heard a jet plane go overhead, and he goes, "Oh, that's a." You know what I mean? He knows them.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, he really knows them, and he loves that app. Flight Radar.
Yep.
And he's shown me on Flight Radar. He's shown, look, there's a plane. Here's Flight Radar. Where is it? And he said, so that's probably a military plane.
Yes.
But when you look up at it, it's not a jet, because in Portugal, most of us, it's quite common to see fighter jets in especially between Porto and Lisbon, probably in Nazaré, San Martino.
Yeah, we
sometimes
see
you have a duck over really, really low. I remember in Nazaré, sometimes it was quite amazing. But there's a base, I think it's in Guarda, I think.
There's also, is it
It's in the
Marinha
north.
Grande? We've definitely got a coastal airport.
So quite often they fly over central Portugal because they come from, I can't remember if it's Guarda, but I think it's Guarda.
Okay.
So we get them flying over us, the jets.
Yeah.
So it's quite familiar to us because we had that in Nazaré a lot, and we have that here. But sometimes when you see, you look up and you see it, and then it's not on Flight Radar, but you can see the plane. You can see it because it's, above your head in the sky, and you have eyes.
It's not on the app.
But it looks like a commercial jetliner.
Okay.
So why isn't that on Flight Radar? So this is a military plane?
Yes.
Maybe.
And also, Fleedham, good evening to you. Thank you for being here. It may well be. We're not. What you're describing, Tony, is what is the evidence of your own eyes, right? So you see the stripes.
Yeah.
You can see on the screen behind you. They spread, and it appears to change the weather. That's what you're saying. And can we have a conversation about that?
Yeah,
well, we are, aren't we? We are, but it's not a conversation that's very widely had. And if you do try and have it, it tends to be kicked out of the conversational dojo quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, most of these conversations go. What I find is a lot of these conversations tend to go to the extremes.
Yeah, why is that? That's what's interesting.
I don't know why.
Do you go to the extremes with them? Because I'm finding that I'm feeling quite extreme about the kind of Ukraine-Russia conversation at the moment. I've felt quite strong feelings about that in a way that I've been not indifferent but less bothered by some things that are discussed.
Well, the only reason I wouldn't say I do feel reasonably extreme. Look, to give you an example, I just saw on Facebook today a typical thing. There's lots of people who suddenly are trying to get money for the children in the Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm just as worried about the children of Russian soldiers. I'm just as worried.
Yes.
Just as worried. Nothing to do with Putin. You're a
Putin apologist, aren't you?
Yeah. Do you get me?
Yes, I do. Like,
I am just as worried about orphaned Russian children as I am about orphaned Ukraine children.
Yeah.
And I find it annoying. And as I said last week, my question to everyone, and still nobody has been able to answer me. I must have asked it 100 times now, is how many men?
Yeah.
My sons, your sons, your
Yes.
brothers, your male friends, your uncle. You know what I mean? How many young men? And no one can answer that question. But there must be a number that you're willing to sacrifice for.
What tends to be the response to that? It's not about that.
They don't change their response. They don't change their response. You know, I'm a Putin apologist. You know, Russia's.
Oh, okay. So rather than
yeah.
address it, they attack you. Now that's what I'm seeing at the moment that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm definitely. It happens to be the 5th anniversary of the Good Morning Portugal show today, and that began as a way of keeping people aware of what was going on with the pandemic. And I have to say, it's really weird that on the 5th birthday, I'm having like flashbacks of this same sort of atmosphere of I've noticed in the mainstream media that I listen to that the conversation has become quite like it was in those days where when you get into the long grass of having a conversation about things, ad hominem stuff happens very quickly.
Putin apologist.
Yes, or don't be so ridiculous. You know, these things like that is
Zelensky's a hero. What's his name? Elon Musk is a Nazi. Things like that. And it's like Elon Musk is and I want to shake people and go, just stop, please, because I want to help you. I want to help you. Stop. Do you really believe that Elon Musk is a Nazi? Do you really believe that he's a Nazi? Do you really believe that he?
But what does it? Even if somebody does, what does that add?
Wants to round up Jews and put them into a. Do you know what I mean, Carl? It's such an amazing thing to say, and everybody's saying these things.
Yeah.
Can't you just tell me what he's doing wrong? You know?
Yeah,
that's what you have to do. What is he doing wrong?
That's why I'm getting flashbacks, because we are at the name calling. We're at the name calling phase, aren't we? And we're at the badge phase.
The problem for me, Carl, do you ever get this? Because the problem I find within myself is sometimes I find it almost makes me double down on the So maybe it can push everybody to the extremes.
Well, that's why I asked you that. That's why I asked you, are you getting more extreme? Because I think I might be. That's what happened to me, because I think I explained to people. I know we've spoken about this before on this show when the pandemic was on, and I've said to people, because a lot of people even recently are still with the anti-vaxxer thing. Yeah,
and I've said to people that was an example. Anti-vaxxer. It's like, my kids had MMR, you know. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've had tetanus shots. I've had volunteer. You know, when we used to travel, we used to always get vaccines. No one seems to do it anymore.
Why is that?
I've paid voluntarily. I've gone to a doctor's and paid their money to stick needles.
You're a pro-vaxxer in that regard.
I'm a pro-vaxxer, I guess. Although I do think it should be a choice. Yes. You know. But for me, what got me, and I've said to people, I was scared, man. I'm a father and I got 2 kids. I'm scared, but I'm looking at the TV and there's people on late night TV dressed as syringes dancing.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's not real. You know, this is I'm having like an acid flashback.
Yeah. I'm definitely getting the vibes and the flashback.
Why are there people dancing on TV dressed as syringes going, vaccine, wearing T-shirts going, we love Fauci. And
yes.
And do you remember they showed those TikTok dances of nurses in hospitals? And I can remember looking at them and thinking, they don't look, to me, I'm like, they don't look like real people. They don't look like real people. And some people, because it made me feel very... I think I've used the word a few times when it comes to these kind of psyop kind of things. I found it really disorienting.
Good choice of words, yeah.
And so I'm watching like these you know, on the news they'd have all these hospital workers coming out doing all these dances. It took me a while to figure it out, but I thought, I know lots of people, and I've worked in lots of environments with lots of different kinds of people, but I've never worked in a place where you could gather together 9 or 10 people from the same part of the workplace who could do choreographed dances.
Good point.
Do you know what I mean? It's obviously fake. It's obviously fake. You don't have a ward that just happens to have 9 or 10 nurses, including the doctor,
doing a cracking dance.
Who can get their act together to do like most of the dancers looked quite. Not being funny, I'm not a great dancer, right? I'm like a baby deer on an ice rink. I can't remember.
Oh, nice image.
But I thought that was it's a nice way to describe it. But I can tell a professional dancer. I can. Yeah. I could tell, and it was just that was what was off. That was what was off. I thought, nah.
And still, like, fine. If you want to make those videos, if you want to watch those videos, and they help you with your worldview. That's all well and good, isn't it? But the problem, and what I anticipate now, is this overreach into how all of that going on suggests people who aren't interested in it. And if we transfer now that psyop energy to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, the anti-vaxxer is now the Putin apologist, and the flag, I've got my jab, is now the Ukraine flag, isn't it?
Well, it becomes very dangerous as well, because you see, for example, in the US, I've seen images of people, for example, because the Ukraine is obviously very linked now to Trump and Elon Musk, isn't it? And you see now people are ramming into Tesla shops and burning Teslas and graffitiing on Teslas.
Yeah.
And all
Do you think those are staged as well? They could be, couldn't they? I mean, whilst Elon Musk appears to be the victim of that might work very well for him as well.
Well, the weird thing, of course, is Elon Musk isn't the victim of it, is he? Normal people who just went out and bought a Tesla.
In inverted commas,
Yeah,
that's the pitch, isn't it? Is like,
I doubt Elon Musk cares. And of course, the reality is that there's a lot of people who will probably buy Teslas to support.
Well, it's polarized, isn't it? It's definitely been polarized. We can't stream onto X, incidentally. I think X took a hit.
Yeah.
Or he pulled his own plug as well.
Yeah.
That's
possible. I can't stream
onto X. You just don't know, do you? What's happening? But it's hard to get onto X right now, so we're not. Apparently, we switch topics faster than lefty scandals come out. Come on, we're not that fast. And tetanus only. And what they have put on me as a kid. That's Carlos talking about his vaccination schedule, which includes Aguadent. Just went firewater for any illness. Hi to you, Leela, as well. And Sandra, good to see you here, Sandra. Took me a month or so to get the nonsense. I think you're talking about the like 2020, this time in 2020, where the psyop that Tony's talking about was starting. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everything is a psyop. It's all about intention and focus, isn't it? We live in, it's like, if this is a matrix, we live in psyops of different kinds. We do psyops to each other, and there are collective ones as well.
I think the problem is that they're not all born equal, are they? Because some of them
definitely not. No,
some of them have real world harm. Like, for example, the pandemic. And before anyone gets excited, I mean, I do believe there was an illness, and I do believe some people became very ill, etc., etc. I'm not denying that. But what I'm talking about is things like the lockdowns and the lies. I'm also talking about the lies. So this is something that bothers me a lot. Is the lies, because a lot of people maybe who are here today don't know that I lived in Hong Kong at the beginning of the pandemic, and we all knew perfectly well in Hong Kong, before it had even made it to Europe, that it had come from the lab in Wuhan. I mean, that was just common knowledge. Okay. So we saw, for example, the WHO lie to the world, and that was when I first sort of realized, wow. Not when I first realized, but that was when I first was slapped in the face with boom, this is all BS. This guy's literally lying to the world, Yes. And so that was when I first realized we're kind of in trouble. And these things, like I say, that really had a big effect, because obviously the lockdowns and things like that were very destructive. And I think no one really speaks about how much damage they did to small business, for example, and mental health and kids' education. And but it's just the lies. And I remember even watching, because we discussed it many times about should we or shouldn't we? And then I'm just watching it, and I just remember watching it go from these vaccines are 100% safe and effective. That made me nervous straight away, because I thought, how can they be 100%? That's a hell of a thing. Couldn't they just say they seem like they're quite, you know what I mean? I would have probably been better with that. And then you watched it change. Do you remember the narrative change?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Okay, 85%, 80%. okay, they won't stop you from getting it, but they'll stop you from getting symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay, they won't stop you from getting symptoms, but they'll stop you from spreading it. Okay, they won't stop you from spreading it. They would, and by that time, I'm like, nah, no.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would you possibly believe this guy? You know what I mean?
Well, right, and I didn't, and it's made me more cynical, you might say, and that's what is interesting now to me is how the psyop, the current psyop, if you like, is in operation with a lot of resonances and echoes. You know, history repeating itself or rhyming with what's gone on before, and what is the end game. And again, where I am with it is like, okay, you do your thing. I'd like to do my thing. Let's see if we can coexist. But I don't want to. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want to send any money for war purposes. I definitely don't want to go and fight myself, and I don't want my children to go.
I don't want my children to go.
How clear is that? You know,
my problem is,
if you want to go, you know, you can do that because we live in a free world, don't we?
That's the other thing I've said to people. So for example, I think it was a Portuguese guy who's a regular on my channel. Fair play to him. We disagree on loads of things, and he sticks with it.
Yeah.
He's got the Ukraine flag in his you know, as his avatar on YouTube.
Yeah.
And because I've talked about this before, I don't know if you saw on Facebook, I've seen this new phrase floating around called Russophrenia, which is a mashup of Russia and schizophrenia. A little bit unfortunate.
Oh, okay, yeah, like derangement syndrome.
It would be better to. Obviously, they fit together well, but I do have a little bit of a bone to pick because schizophrenia is not the same as split personality disorder, but a lot of people conflate them badly. But that's my little woke thing over. I used to work in social care. There's a big stigma attached to people who have schizophrenia because a lot of people think it means split personality. They're completely different. But anyway, let's get past that.
Well, outside the name calling, is it like Russia derangement syndrome, Putin derangement?
Russia derangement syndrome, but it's specifically talking about the problem of cognitive dissonance. Now, just briefly, an example of cognitive dissonance would be being a creationist who also, a Bible, a young world creationist who also believes in dinosaurs, right? And normally cognitive dissonance, so this is believing two things that can't be true. They can't both be true, right? And normally it's not a problem until you get challenged on it, right? And what most people do, rather than assess the new information, is they don't want to let go of these two simultaneous positions because it can be very, very, it can be something like a nervous breakdown almost.
Yes.
If you've got two beliefs that you've held very strongly for a long time, and then so what people normally respond with is anger and defense. They become defensive and angry, right? So Russophrenia, a good example would be
but that's a danger for you and I, isn't it? When we're, you know, that's what a psyop does. It pushes you against the wall, doesn't it? And you're likely to become angry and display these sorts of symptoms, aren't you?
But you remember we had Ursula de Leyen of the EU. She was I reckon she's an evil witch. She's an evil witch. But do you remember she was saying things like she was up there with a big grin going, and Russia's manufacturing ability is crushed, their business is crushed, their economy is in tatters, they're using microchips from washing machines in their military equipment. You remember that? You know, well, anyone who knows
that was a good little idea that came up in the brainstorm, wasn't it?
And anyone who knows anything about it is just ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. But
I've got a test for you.
But at the same time, if Ukraine doesn't win, then Russia's going to invade Europe, right?
Yes.
So this is an example of Russophrenia. They can't be both. They can't be an existential threat to Europe.
Yes.
And
then still need crushing
on the brink of being crushed at any moment.
Sorry, they can't be being crushed and be a crushing threat at the same time.
And then the other thing I heard someone point out the other day is at what point or what evidence. So this is another question you have to ask, right? Whenever anyone says, "Oh, Russia will invade the EU," what you can ask people is, "What evidence do you have that they want to invade Europe? What evidence do you have for that?" because there isn't any. There's no evidence for it.
There is a very strong feeling, isn't there? The sense I get with this is that people have
yeah,
been
you know, 350 billion and 1.5 million lives. You better have more than a strong feeling.
Well, that's all that's necessary, Tony. I'm not saying it's right, but that's all that's ever been necessary, isn't it? That's all that's been required.
But what I want to say to people who have that strong feeling is, where did you get that from? Because you didn't get it from the ether. You got it from people telling you to feel like that. But
over your whole lifetime. Over your whole lifetime.
All I want anyone to ask themselves, right, is just check, is the only evidence you have, because this is what I suspect, is the only evidence you have for feeling that Putin is going to invade Europe, that the newspapers have said Putin might invade Europe.
I've had a conversation with somebody,
because what I think I've seen is, I've seen a lot of media saying this, but they say it without evidence, you know.
Yes.
And you know, like the great Christopher Hitchens, who I don't agree with on many other things, he always said is that can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And so that's what I'm doing.
Yes,
that's what I'm doing. I'm dismissing it because there's no evidence except what I'm being told by a media who have lied to me for years and years about everything else. So that was another meme I saw the other day, as a newsreader saying, hey, listen, we've lied to you about everything else, but about Ukraine, we're telling the truth.
Yes, yes. Well, I posted something, you know, along these same lines that we're talking about, and I have had people saying, you know, well, Russia are a threat, sadly, so we have to do something about them. And the great thing is, I responded to somebody's comment with like, well, where have you got your information from, out of interest? Because I think it's like, you know, Russia's bad, Russia's bad, Russia's bad. Oh, it's the 90s. Russia's okay, kind of. Russia's okay. Russia's okay. Oh no! Back up the truck. Russia's bad again. Russia's bad. Russia's bad. Russia's bad. And here we are. And that's what I think people have been brought up on. And it doesn't take much to just stimulate that bogeyman kind of reaction. And fair play to the bloke who said that to me. We're going to meet and have a drink and talk a bit more about it. And I think that's the right thing to do, isn't it? I mean, you and I can be in this echo chamber here, no problem. But you know, fair play to this bloke who said, "Yeah, we live nearby. Let's meet up and have a beer and have a chat about it."
But it was like Ukraine, most corrupt country in Europe.
Yes,
problem with Nazis. Yes. Azov Battalion. You know, what no one speaks about is you could argue that the Donbass region is, in a way, you know, what I sometimes will ask to people, what I would like to ask people sometimes is, where did you stand on Catalonia? Where did you stand? No. You know where I'm going with this, right? Where did you stand on where did you stand on Catalonia? Because most people were sort of pro-independence for Catalonia, right? You know, they have their own language.
Okay, yes.
But when you look at the history of what's happening in Ukraine, there is a counter narrative, right? And I'm not going to say what's true, because I don't think any of us really know what's true.
We don't, do we? That's the point.
But there's a group of Russian-speaking people in that place, and if you only have to look at the Guardian and the BBC, not very many years ago, they were telling you that there were Nazi militias attacking those people.
But they've changed their tune, Freedom.
So from Putin's point of view, arguably, he's rescuing his people from the Nazis.
And there are calm and thoughtful,
the real ones.
If you want to play video top trumps, there are some very well considered and thoughtful videos that show a very different picture, and based on the people who made the videos, their understanding of history that goes back a little bit further than the current narrative is comfortable to go to, about the arrangement that the Crimea had with the former sort of Soviet Union, and how NATO and how Zelensky all kind of work together to take advantage of the situation. That seems to be, I don't know for sure, that makes more sense to me, but that's probably to do with my brainwashing and how I respond to the propaganda. But it does seem very wise, the assertion you make that we don't really know. Why are we getting involved, and why that conflict and not many of the other?
We don't really know. So my position is going to be that I want the killing to stop. That's got to be my position.
Wouldn't that be great?
I had a conversation. Funnily enough, I know Fleedom. I think it was Fleedom mentioned that, and I've seen it here as well. I go to cafes, I see CNN on the TV a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I used to notice this in Hong Kong, and I've spoken about it with regard to Brexit, I think, on this show before. The problem sometimes of global media. But I was speaking to one of my students in Hong Kong. Kenny is a university student, and we do kind of a speaking lesson. And I was speaking to him about Ukraine, for example, and he was giving a view about the Ukraine. I asked what his view was on Gaza, and it was quite interesting because I managed just carefully to get him to explain to me, because it was predictable to me so without me putting any ideas in his head, to explain to me why he was pro Gaza, because there's a history that happened before. Was it June the 6th? I think October the 6th.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry, shame on us. But
the Gaza-Israel thing didn't start then. There's a history. There's a history, right? Okay. And also that the history of Ukraine and Russia doesn't matter. What matters is that Russia has just invaded Ukraine. Yeah. You see what I mean? So I only did this as part of a lesson, but I was able to get him to realize that he had a view. Wherever you come down on Ukraine and Russia, Gaza, Israel isn't the point of what I'm saying right now.
It was given
to you. What I was talking about was that he was able to simultaneously be pro Gaza because of the history that stretched before the current thing, but pro Ukraine because the history doesn't matter. It only matters what's happening now. Yeah.
And vice versa. These can all be interchanged, can't they? Depending
on of course they could. Whatever side, whatever position you're on, you could flip them, couldn't you?
Yeah. People do. This is what we see, isn't it? Yeah.
So that was very interesting to me and to him as well, and to him.
Evening Squire, thanks Hugh for your commentary. We're coming towards the end now. I'm going off to do my monthly live stream on creating a live stream. So if anyone's interested in starting their own channel or podcast, I'm going to be doing a stream on that from 8 o'clock or thereabouts, and then having a bit of a lock-in session for supporters of my Portugal club thereafter. So come and join me for that. Anything else interesting happened to you this week, Tony?
No, just really
10K.
Well, just speaking about the 10K, I just wanted to give a final tip to anyone who's considered doing any competitive running. It's just to make sure that you do wear proper shoes, so that you don't suffer the agony of defeat.
Munson and the Geeza. Munson and the Geeza. Reporting from the scene. Munson and the Geeza. News in every ride.